I like battery chargers. I'll just confess that. And I always have wanted a battery charger that was USB powered, because they all seem to come with different power adapters for the variety of battery chargers that I've bought, and with moves and other things happening, I seem to lose those adapters, misplace them, they're not long enough, they break, whatever. So I've been intrigued by these battery chargers that are USB powered, either by micro USB, some of them are now USB-C, and came across this charger that I've been using now for 2 months and thought I'd do a quick review of it because it is pretty awesome for what you get. What you get in the box is a user manual and some customer service support cards. The charger itself comes in a bag, and you get a micro USB cable. It also does come with batteries depending on which configuration you purchase off of Amazon. So the one that I purchased did not come with batteries, it was just the charger. And I think it was like $18, $16 or $18. And if you get it with batteries, it's like another $2 or $3. I do have I did order several of the 2800 milliamp hour EBL low self-discharge batteries, which I will do a separate review on. Just want to focus on the charger right now. So the charger comes with a USB cable. There were a few things that I changed right away, little modifications that I made as to how I used it, because for one, the USB cable that it comes with, which is just kind of a generic cable, these cables can tend to have high impedance across them. The wiring gauge isn't very thick, and if this thing is going to be charging quickly and using the full 2.1 amp or more, the cable becomes important because the impedance of the cable can significantly drop the amount of power that's available to the device by 5% or so. So I got my power squid hanging out over here in the corner. I'm not sure if that's going to come all the way into view, but hopefully we can get this thing in here and show if all this comes on. Oh, it's upside down. Well, oh, I can just, let's do this. I can turn this around. No, there's no way I'm going to be able to get that right side up, am I? I think there's a way to rotate the display, but it's a little bit wonky. Let's see if I can get... Well, that's the best we're going to get it. So let's go back to the main menu, unless I'm missing something in the menu options. I was going to load this down with a couple of cells, and we're going to just wanted to get a quick impedance measurement just to show why this is helpful. So I'm throwing Eneloop Pros in there. I had a fourth one laying around here somewhere. Maybe it ran off. But as it starts to load up and charge, and it's doing its negative delta V charging, and it's going about 8 watts. The impedance, the lowest it goes to is 2.7. It's about as low as it's going to go to. So we're going to swap out now this with a higher quality cable, which is like this. Not sponsored by Anker in any way, shape, or form, but I do like these Anker Powerline cables. And so I'm going to plug it into this again. And I'm not expecting a huge difference, but even a tenth to a half an ohm is nice because the energy is being transferred from here to the device as opposed to it being lost in the wire. I'm just watching it as it goes to its highest current, 2.2, 2.5, 2.2, 2.5. So there you go. The out of the box cable was around 2.5, 2.8, and this is about 2.2 to 2.5. Like a 5% improvement. So I just wanted to a cable that's a little bit higher, higher gauge. This may be like one step higher gauge than what this other cable is, like 28, might be 26 instead of 28. But that does make a little bit of difference to make sure you're getting all of the current. So that's why I'm using this cable. The other thing that I did to it was that I added the little rubber feet to the bottom to give it some more airflow underneath. This particular one, when it ships, if you sit it down on something flat, it has an air hole in the bottom to promote airflow, but this is flat, so when you sit it flat down, there's just no possible place for air to get underneath it. So I just put 4 little rubber feet on it, and it lifts it up off the whatever surface that it's on and allows it to charge and keep things a bit more cool. It says right out of the box that it can charge 4 AA batteries, individually charged or per channel charging. And it can charge one cell, a single cell, at a whopping 3.6 amps. So it's pushing 3.6 amps into that cell, and then it divides it down each time you add an additional cell. So for 2 cells, it's 1800 milliamp hour. 3 cells, it's 1200 milliamp hour, and for 4, it's 900 milliamp hour. AAA is the same thing. It actually has a different current profile for AAA, which is 1500 milliamp hour for the single cell, 770, 510, and 380 for all 4 cells. Now, the cool feature that it has is that when you first plug it in, it actually illuminates a indicator which is on all the time, and then there are these status indicators that indicate for the first 10 seconds the charge level of the battery. And they have a little indication on the next page to show that, actually there's 5 indications, the degree in which the battery is charged before it actually starts to charge it. So if it's solid red, it means that it's less than 10%. If it's flashing amber, 10 to 50, solid amber, 50 to 90, and if it's green, solid green, it's above 90. So it's a nice way to kind of put a battery in and get a rough idea of, does it have any charge left on it, or should I just leave it in the charger? Pretty cool feature. They recommend that this be always charged with a charger that can handle 2.1 amps. But there's a cool little feature that this has that I've just found out after using it for a while that I find useful when charging Eneloop batteries. And I discovered it only after I opened this thing up. But what I discovered was on the printed circuit board was a manufacturer. And when I looked at that manufacturer's manual for this similar product, I found interesting information that was not present in this manual. And that is, this can be run at 2.1 amps between 1 amp and 2.1 amps. Certain like USB power hubs or stuff like that, if you plug it into that, they're not going to like the fact that this thing is just going to try to draw as much current as it can. Cubes like this one, like this Apple iPhone charger, they're just fine with this thing being plugged into it. And so when you plug it in, what you find is, well, here I'll have to read it out because it's upside down, but when this is charging, and we'll let it's doing its little display, but 1.7 amps, 1.8 amps, 1.7 amps, 1.8. So it's pretty much, this is a 2.1 amp hour, so 10 or 12 watts. But then if I take it off of here and plug it into this guy, you would think, oh, this thing will just fold. It'll just completely fold out and it won't do anything, but it doesn't. You'll see that it does come down to about 4.7, 4.8 volts, but it hangs at about 1.3, 1.4 amps. Now, this is starting to fold back, of course, because you're exceeding its 5 watt rating. It's getting up to about 6 watts. But this thing can do this all day, and it doesn't get hot. It doesn't get hot, at least in the case of the iPhone charger, it does not get hot at all, even if this thing's been going like this for 2 to 3 hours. So what I've found is a way to use one charger, and if I'm a little bit hesitant about charging my Eneloop batteries, I'll just throw it in the charger using the Ice Cube charger, and it will limit to about 1.5 4 amps coming in, which is roughly 6 watts instead of, yeah, about 6.5. So sorry if this is upside down, but I'll just read it off to you. About 6.5 watts as opposed to 10 watts. So it's a little over half of what the maximum rating is. So if you go back and look at this, the current going through these cells is actually about, instead of, this is 3 cells, instead of 1200, you're probably somewhere around 600 to 700. And if you're just doing 1 cell, instead of it being 3600 milliamp hour, it's going to be somewhere around 1800 to 2000. And the nice thing about that is that rating is well within the specification for both the Eneloop Pros, which can be charged at 1C, and they're about minimum 2450 milliamp hour, and the standard Eneloops, which I don't think I have one floating around here somewhere, can be charged at 1C as well, which is about, they say, 2000 milliamp hour. So if you take this charger, use it with this ice cube, and again, your mileage may vary with whatever 5-watt cube charger you're using. This is an Apple iPhone charger. It seems to have a very nice fold back, and it'll allow that fold back to keep happening without collapsing or shutting down or going into thermal overload for a period of 2 to 3 hours. Other ice cube chargers from other manufacturers may not be able to hold up and may go into thermal shutdown or just refuse to charge it. Your mileage may vary with this, but if you can get it one of these, like an Apple iPhone charger or something similar, then you can get a slow charge out of this fast charger as well as a fast charge with the higher output adapter. And the reason why I say this, why I'm saying all of this, is that I wanted to have one charger that I could use for pretty much all my batteries. And in a pinch, I could just use one charger. Like, I have charged the Eneloop Pros and the Eneloops using this regular charger. And these do get warm. They get up to about 58 degrees Celsius, 55 to 58 degrees Celsius, as do the EBL cells. They get very warm too, about 55 to 58. So they both kind of handle this charger the same way and get the same temperature. The Eneloops, the standard Eneloops, they don't care. They do not get warm at all. And I think the reason why is the capacity is quite small, comparatively speaking, to a 2500 milliamp hour cell or a 2800 milliamp hour cell. The Eneloops are about 2000 milliamp hour. So they just charge so rapidly that they hit full charge and they just are done. So, but for these higher capacity cells that you may want to charge more slowly, or just when you don't need the batteries quickly, you can slow down the charging by just plugging into something else and not have to go through and configure individual charge current. This, using an ice cube charger versus the 10 watt charger, so a 5 watt charger versus a 10 watt charger, is a pretty nice little hack to almost halve the charging current. It's actually a little more than half, but still works quite well. I'll say the construction of this thing is very nice. It feels solid. When it's running and charging, the enclosure, the unit does not get above about 55 degrees Celsius, which is pretty nice. I mean, I expect it to get warm because it's charging at high current, but it does not get above 55 degrees, 58 degrees Celsius, which is pretty nice. And so once take it apart and take a look at the components inside, we'll see if other components in here like suitably rated for that temperature. But beyond that, it charges these things to full capacity, all the batteries to full capacity. It is using negative delta V charge termination, but the other manufacturer that makes this, I think the parent company, also talks about thermal cutoff. So as nickel metal hydride cells reach their charge termination, they heat up. So you may have the batteries in there for a period of an hour or so and put your hand on it and they'd feel a little bit warm, but not hot. But as they reach charge termination, a lot of the energy going into the battery is just being dissipated as heat. And so this charger, according to the parent manufacturer, says that it also has the individual thermal cutoff for charge termination. It will tell you if it thinks the battery is damaged by flashing the light red quickly Anyways, it's a great charger for the price. 18 bucks or 16 to 18 bucks, well built. And I'm going to go down into the teardown and a little bit of foreshadowing that the teardown reveals that the construction of this is really quite good.